In today's lesson, you're going to learn how to multiply fractions. There's 2 easy steps to follow. Number 1, you multiply straight across. You do this with your numerators and your denominators. The second step is that your answer must be in simplest form. You've also heard this called reduce. You must reduce your fraction. This is an easy process, except sometimes you'll end up working with larger numbers by following those 2 steps. So if you notice, the hint says you can make multiplying and simplifying easier by a process called cross-canceling. Cross-canceling must be done before you multiply across. It must be done diagonally. It's the same thing as simplifying, but you do it diagonally. You can cross-cancel more than once, and you can cross-cancel in both directions. So notice over here, there's another way that you can multiply fractions. Instead of multiplying straight across first and then simplifying, you can simplify, then multiply. We're going to take a look at how to do this. In example number 1, we're going to do 3/4 times 2/7. Remember, we're going to simplify first, or cross-cancel, and then multiply. When I simplify or cross-cancel first, I'm looking diagonally. I'm looking at the 3 and the 7. They do not have a factor in common. There is not a number that makes 3, that 3 times anything, that will also make 7. So they do not have a factor in common. But I also want to look the other direction. I notice I have a 2 and a 4. They do have a factor in common. 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So 2 makes both of those numbers. So I'm going to divide both of them by 2 because they have 2 in common. It's hard to see my division signs there. Again, I had to do it diagonally. I know that 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. So what I did when I cross-canceled is I made the 2 and the 4 smaller numbers. I simplified them. Now it's 1 and 2. So that's going to make the multiplying easier when I go across. Now I'm ready to multiply. I have 3 times 1, which is 3, and 2 times 7, which is 14. I always need to make sure that my answer is in simplest form. 3 over 14 is in simplest form. We're going to look at it the other way. We're going to do this again, but I'm not going to cross cancel. And I want you to see that you still will get the same answer even if you don't see that you can cross cancel. You'll still get the same answer. So let's go ahead and just follow the steps of multiply straight across. 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 7 is 28. Notice I'm working with larger numbers. I have to simplify now. So I'm following the example we did first where you multiply straight across, then simplify. So I have to look at 6 and 28 and think of a factor that they have in common. And when I do that, I'm thinking of the first fact that comes to mind. And when I see 6, I think of 2 times 3. And I look to see if either one of those make 28. Because the only other fact that I can think of 28 is 7 times 4, and that does not make 26, or that does not make 6. So I'm thinking 2. They're both even numbers. I know I can divide them by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 28 divided by 2 is 14. Again, I got the same answer. To me, the first way over here was easier. I worked with smaller numbers than I did in the second example. You get the same answer either way. Let's look at example number 2. I'm going to look to see if I can cross-cancel first. I cannot cross-cancel 5 and 7, but I can cross-cancel the 8 and 6. So again, I'm thinking of a factor that 8 and 6 have in common. I know they're both even numbers, so I know they have 2 in common. But if I can think of a higher number, I will. 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 times 4 is 8, and that's all I can think of. So It looks like 2 is the number that they have in common. I will divide them both by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. I just completed the cross canceling. Now I'm ready to multiply straight across. 5 times 4 is 20. 3 times 7 is 21. Oftentimes when you cross cancel first and then you multiply, your answer is in simplest form already. So I'm looking at 20 and 21, making sure it cannot be simplified any further. And the only fact that I can think of for 21 is 7 times 3. And 7 does not make 20. 3 does not make 20. So that would be my final answer. Let's look at it again without cross-canceling. If I just multiply straight across, I would get 40 over 42. Again, I'm working with larger numbers. Once I multiply across, the second step is to simplify. And all I can think of is that both of these are even numbers, so I'm going to divide them by 2. 40 divided by 2 is 20, and 42 divided by 2 is 21. Again, I got the same answer. Let's look at the third example. I have a mixed number this time. When you are multiplying or dividing fractions, you do not want to work with mixed numbers. So in your previous video, you learned how to take a mixed number and turn it into an improper fraction. And that's going to be our first step. We're going to have to complete the check mark method. We have to multiply and then add. So 3 times 6 is 18. And then 18 plus 5 is 23. So I'm going to rewrite this as 23 over 6. Again, you cannot work with mixed numbers. They have to be turned into improper fractions. Now that I have my problem rewritten, I'm ready to see if I can do any cross-canceling. And immediately I notice the 3 and the 6. I know that 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 2 is 6. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both of these by 3 because they have 3 in common. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. I'm going to check the other direction to make sure I can't cross-cancel that way as well. 23 is not an even number, and the only thing that makes 2 is 2. So they do not have a factor in common. I go ahead and multiply straight across. 1 times 23 is 23. And 2 times 2 is 4. You will notice that this is an improper fraction. The numerator is larger than the denominator. When you have a final answer, your answer cannot be an improper fraction. I'm going to have to take this and divide it and turn it back into a mixed number. You also had a video on that. So we're going to take 23 and divide it by 4. 23 divided by 4, 6 times 4 is 24, so that's too big. I'm going to go 5 times. I have 3 left. That remainder is going to make my fraction with my divisor. So my final answer is 5 3/4. Again, you need to take your improper fraction and turn it back into a mixed number for a final answer. All right, we have one more problem. This problem is not a mixed number, it's just a whole number. I have the whole number 5. You've learned in the past that when you have a whole number and you want it to look like a fraction, you can put it over 1. That would be 5 divided by 1, and 5 divided by 1 is 5. So I have not changed the number 5. It's still 5, it's just in the form of a fraction. So now that I have both of them in fraction form, I'm ready to see if I can cross-cancel. 4 and 1, you cannot. Anytime there's a 1 in your denominator or the numerator diagonally, you cannot simplify that. And then 7 and 5 do not have a factor in common either. So I'm ready to multiply straight across. 4 times 5 is 20, and 7 times 1 is 7. Again, this is an improper fraction. I must turn it into a mixed number by dividing. So I'll do 20 divided by 7, which is 2 times 7 is 14. That's as close as I can get. I'll subtract, and I get 6. That's my numerator. The divisor 7 is my denominator. My final answer is 2 6/7. Again, you cannot have an improper fraction as the final answer. You must change it to a mixed number.